and gentlemen, that said, we've got another panel discussion lined up for you on blockchain adopting the decentralized approach in digital payments. I would now like to introduce you all to the moderator of this session, requesting Mr. Saurabh Bhattacharya, Director PwC India, to please join us. With that, Ms. Anusuya Ghosh, Star Union Daiichi Life Insurance, Mr. Anindya Karmakar, Business Head Lending, Aditya Birla Finance, Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Head Technology, Digital Innovation, Architecture, DCB Bank, Mr. Sudhin Baraukar, Industry Expert, Global IT and Innovation Advisor, CIO, Mr. Syed Mushir Ahmed, Founder and Managing Director, FinStep Asia, and Mr. Saurabh Bhattacharya, all over to you.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Very clear, sir.
Oh, great. Thank you. I think we have a great afternoon with a very interesting topic to discuss and a very great and big panel, I would say, with cross-dimensional experience which they bring in, starting with the insurance, finance, banking. I think it's a very interesting afternoon we'll have with us now. Thank you all for joining. And before I start, I'd like to just start by introducing myself. I have been working on blockchain for almost around 4 years now. My introduction to blockchain was on the basis of the issues which I saw in the government sector, because I have been working with government for almost 15 to 18 years, where I have worked across almost all fields, and I could see that when blockchain was ushered in, I could see that there was enormous benefits which the government can draw and also industry can draw from blockchain. And that's where I started evaluating blockchain. And since then, I have delivered almost 5+ blockchain solutions, production solutions covering agri supply chain, financial reconciliation, audit, document attestation. And these are actual use cases which have scaled blockchain or use of blockchain to a different level. Recently, I also delivered one sandbox, a very unique solution which runs across multiple protocols and multiple cloud environment, and it's a sandbox as a service which was shortlisted by the Prime Minister's Office in India as one of the innovative solution of 2019. This is all about me, but more interesting is that the subject today and the people we have, the panel we have. So I would quickly jump into that. I would open this forum for quick introduction from each of the panelists today. But before I do that, I'd just like to share my thoughts around digital payments and how digital payment has the ability to change the entire ecosystem, the payments ecosystem. One is that I understand the type of financial inclusion power which it brings in with the unbanked sector, and not just in India. I was in fact interacting with the Bank of Bahamas, which came out with a currency system, a digital currency system of its own, called as Sand Dollar recently. So I was interacting with them, and I came to understand that the fact that more people have a mobile phone than a bank account only proves that what power digital payment can have for financial inclusion, and similarly how it can improvise and help improve the type of financial transactions which you are doing. And blockchain, with its intrinsic values, which has been quite well elaborated by the Bitcoin use case or the Ethereum use cases, what we have seen, we understand that it has the ability to disrupt this digital payment field in a big manner. Now, what are these disruptions which we have seen till now, and what are those which we think we will see in the future? This is what I would like to use this opportunity to talk and seek from the panelists here. Now, having said that, I'll quickly pass on the baton to, in the following orders. Anusuya, if you can please introduce yourself and talk about your work, and starting with after that Anindya, and then Prasanna, Sudhin and Syed. So go ahead please, Anusuya.
Thank you, Saurabh, and thank you to the entire Sapphire Connect team to have me on this panel. So my introduction is that, of course, I'm an insurance professional. In the last 26 years, I've worked across the public sector as well as various private insurers. Currently, I work with Star Union Daiichi. And more than anything, when it comes to blockchain, I am a blockchain enthusiast. So, when I'm hearing Saurabh talk about his experience across so many different countries, it's really exciting to hear about this. And for me, that I'm in this panel is not necessarily because I've done a lot of work on blockchain, but yes, I am an enthusiast and I want the power of blockchain to also permeate into insurance in a larger way. So that's about me, and passing on to the next speaker.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, thank you, Anu. This is Anandya Karmakar. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So I have been basically into retail banking space all my career, a couple of decades. Been on the asset side and the liability side mostly, but I've also done insurance and wealth management as well. Currently, I run the consumer finance business in Aditya Birla Finance, which is basically the whole traditional model of doing consumer finance, is kind of being done using technology and data. So earlier, you were kind of giving these loans at physical touch points, branches, and things like that. I remember my first stint where we had hundreds of branches and thousands of employees doing this business. Today, my team is basically less than 40 people, and we do almost 4 or 5 times of the business that we used to do at that point of time. So that's really what we are building today. It's very exciting. From a blockchain perspective, I think there is a couple of things which Saurabh pointed out. One is that how does finance actually reach some of the underbanked or unbanked people? I think blockchain can probably help in some way. I'm not too sure if India is the right example for doing that, because there are many infrastructure which is available in India to be able to do that in a fairly efficient way, but there are downsides to it. But of course, there are other countries which face a very similar problem, and blockchain can be a very good solution to address those issues. And of course, in terms of trade finance, where the lending comes, I think that's one very, very good use case that blockchain can help solve. Thank you.
Great. Prasanna, over to you. If you can introduce yourself. You are speaking on mute, Prasanna.
Hey, hi, Saurabh. Very good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible now and visible too. Okay, so my name is Prasanna Lohar. I work in bank, DCB Bank. I work there as a head innovation architecture, and I handle digital banking also at the bank. So coming back, blockchain, I'm practicing blockchain since last 4 or 5 years. And I co-chair FICCI at a national level for blockchain initiatives in India, not only banking but other type of industries. I'm a member of IMAI for blockchain and the cryptocurrency group. So I mentored more than, I think, 30-40 startups in blockchain area, and I've seen the live use cases running in India, outside of India. And at my bank, we are practicing some use cases. Hopefully, by year end or in this financial year, we'll have at least 3 to 4 use cases live running and in production, not POC pilots. So that's how we are aspiring. With other banks, as a blockchain is a consortium kind of or a network kind of effect. So we are working with peer banks also to look at some of the use cases on a trade finance or a CKYC or on a cash-based reconciliation model. So that's overall I can talk. So even we'll discuss more about the. I think I have heard Anusuya as an enthusiast, and I heard some one of our speakers said yet to look at some of the production, but there are a lot of examples and how blockchain is going to be the future ahead of the other technologies or along with the other technology. We'll discuss sort of in detail.
Sure. Thank you. Sudhin?
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Sudhin Baraukar. I have been head of innovation at State Bank of India, Barclays, and previously with IBM and GE. I have worked on, in 2017, I founded the Bank Chain Alliance along with Prasanna and a lot of my senior banking peers. And that same Bank Chain Alliance today has got the participating banks embarking on several blockchain solutions as well as automation solutions. I have also got experience in the entire blockchain end-to-end lifecycle management, smart contracts, engineering and development. Have also delivered solutions on payments. We did a remittance payment between State Bank of India, Nepal Kathmandu branch and our Mumbai branch. So that was one of the first transactions to be done on blockchain using IBM Hyperledger. Have also delivered smart contract solutions where the NDA with startups could be signed, and that entire process was reduced from, say, 1 to 2 weeks to about 15 minutes. So I can talk about the entire good, bad, and ugly of blockchain, all the best practices, the lessons learned, some of our stories where we failed fast and were told to fail fast and get on with other use cases. I can also talk about the current environment, which is definitely focused on emerging use case in India, especially around financial inclusion, around the entire decentralized finance or DeFi, as well as a lot of how the integration of blockchain with other emerging tech can shape the future of the entire payment ecosystem.
Thank you, Sudhin. I think one thing which I will do is that I'll come back to you to hear more about the pitfalls or the ugly part which you have come across so that we learn from you and do not do that. Over to you, Syed Bashir.
Thank you, Saurabh, and thank you to Payground for having me today. I'm co-founder of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, and currently I run my own advisory firm, which is what FinTech Asia is. My engagement with blockchain has been there for about 5 years or so. I don't come from the technology expertise side, but I've been looking at it from a business perspective. My first firm that I worked for after my MBA here in Hong Kong had created a report on capital markets and use of blockchain thereof in 2016, quite early on before our spike in use of blockchain in that space. So I look at blockchain from business use cases, especially in global markets, as well as the developments in the central bank digital currencies and financial markets. I also work closely with policymakers and regulators on regulations around the cryptocurrency and digital asset space.
Thanks. I think you have touched upon a very important part, which is regulations of cryptocurrency. I think a lot of countries are now struggling with the mechanism they will develop. And as CBDC is getting evolved, I think there's a lot more mechanisms which needs to be developed to handle that. So we need to talk more on that, and we will certainly have some questions around that for you. But to start with, Anusya, I think we'll start with you. And you have been working on the insurance sector. I know we had a small offline chat where I could understand your excitement about blockchain and also the challenges which you have seen in its adoption across the insurance industry. So I'd like to just come back to you and check with you is what are the challenges which you see. I'll start right with what are the challenges which you see in the insurance industry, why the adoption of such product, while we have heard a lot of talks happening around using blockchain, but adoption across the industry has been quite low. So what do you think is the reason for that?
Okay, so thank you for that question, and it is a very pertinent question. It doesn't have a binary answer, okay, because everything has a little bit of gray in this. So yes, everybody, to understand why everybody is excited, and yes, the uptake is still very slow. I think it's important to understand the context of, how insurance business has been operating traditionally. So prior to 2000, 2001, before the sector opened up, most everything was happening offline and physically. So people were more comfortable to kind of come to a branch, have a policy issued, see their policy, feel that policy, and keep it in their, in their almirah or drawers. But as we went along and the markets evolved and new players came in, something called a workflow was then introduced. So organizations then moved to a workflow environment where, paper was no longer relevant, and it was more important for most of the papers to move digitally. Eventually, sometime in say 2013-14, even LIC, which is one of the, of course, it used to be the monopoly, one of the largest players in the country today. LIC digitized more than 90% of its data, of all its data, which was obviously a humongous thing. So then there was no excuse for any private company to come and say that, look, we have so-and-so challenges. Because if LIC could do it, then so could the others. However, when it comes to the blockchain part of it, it's it is a balance, right? So ultimately, insurance is a capital intensive industry, and whatever technology spends that organizations do need to be done on the basis of some ROI. So ultimately, there are two things that kind of work out. One, maybe a larger player that is working on a large umbrella, say like a Bajaj General Insurance, has already gone live on something on the blockchain solution on the claims front. But there may be others who are still exploring, and they want to know whether the spends that you're making, if there is an offset, that it will be that yes, whatever that you're making as a spend or whatever bills are going up will eventually result in an income which commiserates with the spends that you're making to implement blockchain. So I think one of those is definitely a very important factor for a management to decide whether they want to go for such a large technology spend. Yes, it's true that people do talk about all the benefits, the operational efficiency, the stability of the data, the fact that the ownership of the data will not sit with just one master record holder, but that everybody will have equal amount of ownership or participation in that data. All of that being true, insurance companies, from my experience, look for the alternatives first, in the sense that can we not look at a central data directory? So I'll take an example. Okay, so I'll take an example of, say, a blacklisted agent list, which is a part of, Aves and all covered it in their previous talk, and hence I'm just taking an example from there, that the blacklisted agents are all available in a centralized directory, available with IRDA, so companies can actually reach out to them and get the data of any, fraudulent or risky agents in the market. So that would be like a solution for most organizations. The insurer will obviously at that time not think, what about the sanctity of that data? Is it possible that there is some erroneous elements within that data? Can that data directly be hacked? All of that can be done. So people would not, the go-to solution would not necessarily be a blockchain for many insurers in 2020. Okay. Now there are organizations which are probably dealing in marine and hull. A lot of things are related to the barrier here is also the collaborators. Who is collaborating with you? Who are the different parties involved in the value chain that you have created from the time that you have a prospect and a client to the time that there is a claim. So today the health insurance industries that are less than 5 years old have kind of, they are looking aggressively at blockchain solutions, trying to figure out if there is a way of moving to a smart contract kind of a scenario or an architecture. But they can afford to do it because right now they have still not spent hundreds of crores on their technology, right? A life insurer that has already spent 20 years in the market has already invested in various upgrades and hundreds of crores of technology solutions may not consider it the go-to solution that let's move everything and transcend to blockchain, lock, stock and barrel. So most everybody, a small player to the largest player, will look at their MVPs first, look at these smaller projects, and then on an iterative basis, look at where else, what are the other slavers of opportunity within their processes and their offerings to their customers. Can blockchain come into play? So it is, like I said, when I said the answer is not binary, there are multiple factors, including, in 2018, we came up with this consortium where about, I think, 14 or 15 life insurers came together and said that, okay, let's go for a consortium and build something together and where we will exchange information with certain governance in mind. But if you look at it in 2020, the focus areas for these insurers is no longer just looking at blockchain. Today, everybody's trying to figure out how can COVID be turned into such a way that yes, they can continue their operations, the business continuity plans can continue. So I think, so it's an amalgamation of a lot of things. People are excited. People want to look at new innovative solutions, because we know that even in countries like Estonia, I was reading a report from PwC that was released last month, I think. And if a country like Estonia can actually start a blockchain for certain very specific transactions, right, for all its citizens, there's no reason that a country which is already having more than 1 billion people on their UIDAI directory cannot think of some kind of a blockchain solution on the insurance space. Today, even the birth directories and is all run through a municipality process, right? There's no centralized database for such things. Similarly, applies to the death certificates as well. So there are lots of scope, but it is also getting everybody together, getting the regulators together, getting the government to give focus on these particular problems to find certain solutions that can then be where the go-to solution is blockchain and not something else. So for me, I look at it this way: if KYC was not solved by UIDAI, if there was no such idea ever, maybe blockchain would have been the go-to solution to bring that in place. But since UIDAI is in place, people don't go to a blockchain solution for KYC. They go to the UIDAI directories to figure out, how to operate the KYC. And now these are this is how I've looked at it, and these are my views. But like I said, there are insurers in the market, large players, as well as the smaller, younger health insurance companies that are exploring a lot of interesting use cases within insurance.
I think you have made a very pertinent point. There cannot be a one single answer. I think if I say so in a summary, that there are multiple reasons why, and I agree that priority today may not be blockchain and another additional investment in IT unless you have commensurate benefits. But moving to Anindya, taking the cue from what Anu said, that priority has not been in insurance sector while they understand the benefits of blockchain, but for them there are other burning issues which they need to deal first. Is that the same for the banking industry as well? Is it what the industry, the banking, maybe the commercial banks, maybe the non-retail investment banks, are they also thinking in the same way?
See, I think the issue really, Saurabh, is that the whole awareness, or probably the lack of awareness of this technology today in most of the companies in BFSI, I think that's one of the starting points. If I talk about, I worked in a bank, I worked in NBFCs, and I've interacted with people in the industry. I think barring a few people, and there are people on this panel itself who understand this very well. But if you go to a company and to a decision maker and ask that person, okay, now this is a technology which can actually solve a certain problem, I think the lack of understanding of how it works and how this is going to really transform some of the problems that are there, I think that's where it all starts, right? So that's one of the things why this has not taken off that well. And if you really talk about a couple of use cases from a lending perspective, I think one of the cases which Anusuya also spoke about is the KYC problem. And largely the KYC problem has been solved. So even if you want to use blockchain to solve the problem, I think this whole consortium has to happen. Sudhin spoke about the whole bank chain which has got created. I'm sure there is a identity use case which the bank chain consortium is looking at. But the whole point is that there is an opportunity. But then, as a skeptic, I would ask, if I put myself in the shoes of, let's say, a management who is taking a decision, I would ask, why do I need to do that? Because that is a solved problem for me. Of course, there are downsides and there are issues to that. But then why do I even need to spend time and effort? Because there are other burning issues that I need to really talk about and solve. So this is one of the things, right? And then culturally, I think it is deeply unsettling, even if someone understands what blockchain is. it is deeply unsettling to, think about a whole lack of control, which this technology actually brings about. And, people want control. People want to know what exactly is happening. People want to make decisions, make changes. But this whole loss of control can be a bit unsettling, in organizations. And I have also seen people who understand that. Okay, they really cannot envisage a situation where a technology is taking decisions and controlling because you have already coded that, into the system. And people also do not, understand what is the kind of cost or the TCO which is going to be for this technology, because you read conflicting reports, reports which say that there will be cost efficiencies if you do this. But then there are also cases where when you think about public blockchain, you then talk about costs rising because the same task is being repeated at every node. Okay, so it takes time and it's not very cost efficient. And therefore, this whole private blockchains and, the hybrid blockchains, they talk about try to solve some of these problems. But then that taking you away from the core concept of blockchain, right? Which is the whole decentralized and distributed and the trust, which basically comes because you are not centralized and you're moving away from it. So I think if you put all of these things together, I think this whole lack of awareness followed by lack of understanding, even if you're aware that there is something called blockchain, lack of understanding of how it can be, implemented inside an organization. And I have participated in discussions within the organizations that I have worked in. And there always has been, okay, so let's talk to the fintechs, right? Because, we can't do this ourselves. So let's talk to the fintechs, and then fintechs will come and tell you the use case. But then you are always thinking, but, we are doing this today also. So why do I need to invest in this emerging technology because I'm not too clear about it?
I think it's very important. Lack of understanding is an issue which I think is very important, because I had multiple rounds of debates with senior officials in the government or the private sector. It took a lot of effort to convince them. No, Prasanna, since you have done 3 to 4 use cases across multiple domains dealing with finance, how did you handle this issue? Did you face the issue of lack of understanding? I'm sure you would have, but if you have...
So, So, Saurabh, I think based upon the inputs given by Anusaya and our friend, so I'll give the detailed input, right? So, if you talk about any technology coming in our life, this question will always come to you, right? So lack of understanding and awareness. It's not a blockchain per se. Blockchain came in our life today, and we are talking about lack of understanding and awareness. So that's a important aspect, very much important aspect at an organization level or at a education level, at a multiple level. So that will always come in our life. Okay, so if you talk about overall blockchain journey or a crypto journey since 2009 till now, or a journey of internet, right? So you talk about internet and you talk about internet use cases today. We hardly discuss about internet protocol today, right? How TCP/IP works or how IP works and this and that. That's a technological awareness. Or we don't talk about I'm going to create a website or a mobile app today. It's a health issue for every organization to have that use cases on top of internet, right? So today we might talk about awareness these things, right? But we may not talk about these awareness things after down the line 5 years, right? You talk about internet, it has evolved in an initial 5 years itself. You had email or portal websites, etc., available of your open internet in 95, and 2000 you had many more things on the internet, followed by a surge of your Android, iPhone. You can't see your model without mobile phones, right? So blockchain journey, I think in India started in 2015-16, where state government also started participating into these POCs and pilots, including banks and all. I think in the next 3-4 years, you'll have many more use cases. So what do you mean to say? The pace of internet adoption and the pace of blockchain is very huge. So I think awareness, we keep on talking on awareness and this and that, but by virtue, your customer demand will, or the way we operate, right? Say example, internet came or smartphone came, automatically all the business model, operation models came onto the internet. Tomorrow your 5G will come, your IoT will surge, or your marketplace or aggregation kind of a use cases will come in our domain. So automatically there will be need of a trust. So automatically people will start adopting blockchain without knowing what is meant by blockchain. So that is by virtue people will go for it. So as Ananya said or Anusay said, ki awareness problem is there because we're talking about blockchain now, right? Maybe after 5 years there are millennials and the customer will drive that journey. We'll not talk about that. There are n number of courses available. The like last 3 years, multiple universities came in our life. State governments are talking about, or national policy talking about how emerging technology will be part of a regular course, right? We have seen AI. Similarly, blockchain or a similar kind of a thing will be adopted. So I think what is needed for every organization that is that your strategy, right? The way I'm going to operate on a marketplace banking, on consortium kind of a use case like CKYC or trade finance along with other banks. Is it your policy or is it your strategy? Yes, then there is no option for learning and hiring people, creating governance, doing some POC pilots and get onto that proper model. So I think we have seen BankChain is a very good example where banks came in together and started their journey. So we had learnings from the BankChain, wherein we have seen BIC is being. I think BIC will be operational in few some time. Blockchain infrastructure company. At the same time, NPCI has come up with a Vajra, right? So that will also become operational. There are more than 10 plus banks are doing it. These are live use cases, and for every live use cases there is a curve, right? You have to do POC, pilot, understand learnings, understand technically the feasibilities, architecture, performance aspect. This slowly will evolve, right? Slowly will reach there. So you have an example of a income tax department, wherein we were the first to do that complete pilot with a Kotak and HDFC along with the Infosys as a service provider. That will become a live use case. So for every use case, at least in India, apart from banking, I can name at least 50 plus other sectors who are trying or doing those use cases. So it is an evolution curve. So awareness, understanding is the first curve where we have to reach there, right? Now coming back to your question, Saurabh, internally we had done enough number of POCs wherein my SDLC lifecycle understand what is in blockchain. My developers, my testers, my IT security guy, my audit guys, my internal board members or top management is aware of what is blockchain and importance of blockchain in the various workflows. So example, one of the use case which I will talk about is like how on a ATM there is an RBI mandate. So if somebody is visiting ATM for opening, there has to be supervisor subordinate kind of a mechanism, and it has to be tracked who is done what. So manually I can go and track, right, in a register. So what we have done, we have created a complete system wherein a user will request for a one-time combination password. So half part goes to the supervisor, half part goes to subordinate. So since generation of a password till its utilization and the expiry on a particular ATM, until that ATM is understanding opening that for putting some cash or doing some kind of activity, it's completely under a blockchain. So this pure play, it may not be a use case to be say ki this is a blockchain use case, but certainly it's an use case wherein awareness has been created under complete members of the SDLs. Tomorrow I go with a bigger use case like trade finance and cross-border, where we are working with some of the DeFi kind of a companies also, right? So like so what's going to happen, right? So this will the same set of people will come and ask what is in my blockchain, right? So I don't have to wait for that stage, right? So when I'm going for an actual use cases on a income tax or a trade finance and cross-border or a centralized KYC, which is at NSE. So there are enough use cases are happening, right? But when actually these use cases will come in our life, where the consortium banks will come together and we start doing that moment, I would say my organization is ready. All the stakeholders are ready. That's a adoption curve we have built within our organization, Saurabh. So I think in a nutshell, what I want to conclude is that blockchain is a necessary technology. What we have seen in pandemic or in post-pandemic and over a period of next 2 years, blockchain will be a normal technology for those organizations who are already practicing. For others who are not practicing, it will be a risk. It is a risk for them. They were not part of that journey. So it's not only blockchain. Blockchain comes along with the combination with the other technologies. Blockchain is in the back end, but it has to talk with the front end, either mobility or IoT or any other mechanism where user is interfacing. Insurance, your car is damaged. That's an interface. It has to talk to the blockchain and necessary team members, right? Necessary network members of the insurance company, UIDAI or a bank or a car manufacturer and so on. So blockchain is the back end who is acting smartly, but that front end has to talk with the back end blockchain with the smart contracts or any intelligent APIs and so on. So today we operate in an internet era, right? Tomorrow, when we'll get into augmented reality or IoT or 5G, we will have to inherently need of a trust. What is not offered by internet, automatically that additional layer of a trust will be built everywhere. I'll give a small example, right? So I had one of the hackathon wherein one of the guy was presenting a apparel, right? So this particular apparel is a trat just like that. This is being sold to you and there is no traceability. But this is another apparel, it costs 1,000 rupees, at least 100 rupees plus on top of this. But this apparel gives a traceability starting from that cotton till it is reached out to you. Obviously, we'll always look at the complete traceability. The food is coming from where, right? Particular raw material is coming from where. Particular pharmaceutical tablets, right? There are 30-40% tablets are always a fraud. So one of the use case Nitya is one of the first use case where they tried is that one, right? In a pharmaceutical industry. So that way we can talk a number of use cases. I think Anusya touched upon very good example of Estonia where 290 plus use cases for all the citizens are on blockchain. 290 is as good as everything is on blockchain, right? And your code is on blockchain. If you want to do any kind of payment, cab booking, everything is on blockchain out there. That becomes a template for other countries, right? Our adoption could be like a 0.5 or something in across the world. I think we'll hear from other panels, and when I would like to add like how digital currency is very important for a country like India, where some small countries are started adopting. Cambodia recently launched some of their own digital currency. There are small countries are doing. We have plenty of problems, right? But blessed with some of the state governments are practicing, like Telangana or Kerala, Maharashtra. 10 plus state governments are really doing it. I would next 40 seconds I can say every risk-taking bank or every risk-taking organization who want to really progress are adopting blockchain. They are already there. Talk about Citibank or HSBC, or there are ICICI banks, and there are many more. So I think it's a time for us to really embark that journey rather than talking ki awareness is a challenge or some other is a challenge. Technology is a challenge. I'll give you example of some of the startups or they are performing better than Visa's transactions on ledger kind of a technology. So I think it's a mindset game. When I'm participating in that game, what is there for me? If I'm participating for a CKYC kind of a use case, what is there for me as a bank, right? Against other banks? That incentivization. I think that governance structure is yet to be ready, right? Technology is there, but how do we participate? What is that policy? I think Mushir will more perfect guy to guide on based upon his experiences. So I think over to you, Saurabh. We can keep on talking what's happening in the blockchain era, but I think is happy to hear all the expert views from Mushir and the others.
Thanks for that. I think some pertinent points you made and encouraging observations which you shared. But coming to taking this further, Sudhin, I think one thing which we all would like to understand is your experience on BankChain, the way you have helped it evolve, whether you faced similar challenges which other panelists have been talking about. Did you adopt the same strategies which Prasanna spoke of? And what is that you have been able to learn while helping BankChain evolve? Bringing a consortium was a big challenge. How did you bring them on board?
So yeah, thanks, Saurabh. So in 2017, we got 30 plus banks together, mostly Indian large banks, as well as some banks in the middle, as well as about 5 to 6 technology partners like IBM, Intel, Microsoft, and a few others. And we called all the bankers, all the technology crowd of the banks, including Prasanna, and we call them to our GITC, Global IT Center, SBI IT Center at Navi Mumbai, CBD. And I just told them two things, right? Let's shed our ecosystem and work in an ecosystem. And the second part is we are all equal. Nobody is big or small. Let's be in it together. Let's combine, let's pool resources. Let's take help, let's take the best practices, and let's build up this kind of collaborative ecosystem which I'm not saying that it's not really happened very well in India, but typically, we have not been really at the forefront of building such alliances, especially from a technology side. Now, 3 years ahead, when we look at it, I think we are looking at a contactless, digital, seamless world. We are looking at automated, autonomic, audited worlds. And this is exactly why we came together and formed this alliance. It is very similar to what we have done in the past. For example, in Barclays, I can tell you when we started our digital journey, and we started with our Barclays internet banking, Barclays tablet banking, Barclays mobile banking. People used to keep asking us, is this going to work? Is this going to be successful? In SBI, we did our core banking modernization. We also launched our YONO app, which is You Only Need One, which is a complete bank in a box application, mobile application, smartphone application, plus with payments, with everything, right? Today, we can see that sitting at home, we can do all the transactions. Why is that so? Because we've invested in technology, and that's where the world is going. It's shifting very rapidly from domain expertise to deep tech expertise. And just like how cars are going to drive by themselves, and they already are doing that, all industries are going to get autonomic. And that's a huge benefit, a benefit of a contactless, seamless digital world, less costs, more integration, more APIs, more monetization, more opportunities. Right. So I think what we have embarked on has served the country and the globe very well. And I can tell you that we will continue to invest in the blockchain and emerging technologies. All banks will do that. In fact, a lot of other industries have also joined the bandwagon. The reason is, let's look at our core banking, right? Let's look at our core banking, right? And let's look at our payments. We benchmarked our core banking in SBI in 2018 at 24,000 transactions per second, or approximately 1.5 billion transactions in a day, to serve 450 million plus customers and 670 million plus accounts. This is the most complex, advanced, scalable core banking system in the world, developed by Indian technologists and developed for India, right? So it does take time. Think of it that payments, core banking, these are mission critical services. We cannot afford to have these mission critical services failing, because there are billions surviving on that. And look at today's world. I mean, imagine that if our services fail, imagine the catastrophe. But they have never failed. It means that over the years, even our payment systems, like the SWIFTs or other systems that we've used and still use, we have tested them. We have agreed on the protocols. We have worked with the regulators. We've worked with the authorities to make sure that everything is compliant. There is a proper KYC. There is a payment origination. There is a payment verification. And there is a payment settlement. So just as cloud, which started in the early 2000s and today has become mainstream, be it a private cloud or a public cloud or a hybrid cloud, it's all mainstream. The same way blockchain, which I call it as a distributed, decentralized, secured system of record by which you can establish a trust as a service through a smart contract engagement. So we have to look at all these past investments. We have to look at our current strategies. I think the best way for blockchain to continue is to look at very specific use cases. Let me take from a specific India angle, especially in the fraud, right? The total amount of fraud, including payments and loans and lending in India, is 1,86,000 crore rupees, $25 billion plus. imagine if that money can be given to the people who actually need it, right? Then just losing it to fraudsters and scamsters. So if we focus the blockchain where we have to, as Prasanna and the others on the panel also mentioned, that there is an investment. It takes time. There is also a cost to the investment, right? So if we just focus on where that money can be used, for example, I think the fraud in payments, if blockchain can be used for that, is a fantastic use case and easily monetizable, because we are commercial banks, right? We cannot just keep investing in money, in technology, and just saying, and just appearing on the stage and say, hey, we have done all this innovation, we have done all this transformation. Oh, by the way, does it work? Yeah, it'll work. Yeah, of course it works, right? So I think we have to keep forwarding this journey. I think through the bank chain experiment and through working with other banks like DCB, ICICI, Bob, NDB, Emirates, and such other major banks. We did do the transactions in rupee inward remittance transactions, because in India only Nepal and Bahrain is allowed for inward rupee remittance. Because if we do the forex remittance, then it comes under FEMA and FERA, and then we have to obviously get further approvals required by the regulator, right? So we've already done this. We've already done NDAs with startups. So I think these are some of the best practices that we have implemented. In fact, I was also told by the stakeholders that, so then it doesn't matter if you fail, but fail fast, right? Go on to the next use case. If you feel that this use case is, not going to be what we expect, because we have to be very careful that, banking is a lifesaver for everyone, right? And we are also talking about not just using blockchain for next generation, core banking or next generation payments, but even we are looking at financial inclusion. These are the emerging themes, right? For India, the financial inclusion is a massive theme. If we can use blockchain to integrate with the Aadhaar card, with the JAM trilogy, which is your, Jan Dhan, your Aadhaar, and your mobile, I think that's where really the entire ecosystem can put it to work. And that's where the use of blockchain along with emerging tech can really help the entire global system.
And I think that's very interesting, Sudhin, which you have really articulated well. But for all these to happen, I think there is a need for having a proper regulatory setup. And this is where I would come to you, Syed Mushir. I think it's a very important aspect. What are those regulatory aspects which the regulators needs to look at and think about when it comes to bringing payments on blockchain? You are on mute.
The classic novice mistake. I think there are two ways to look at this, and the others have already touched upon various elements of how we and where we need regulations. One is the technology in itself doesn't need any regulations, right? It's the use cases that you're talking about that need regulation. Now, the question is that blockchain is enabling certain use cases that were not in place before. Was cross-border payments, is it a new thing? No, it's not, right? You could have done it before, but real-time cross-border payments is a slightly more modern element, but it is not something it's like something that came up yesterday, right? So you've always had these. It's just that these systems, a lot of these regulations are catered towards what is known as financial stability. And when you're switching to blockchain, the notion of lacking stability, because these were typically backed by newer startups, etc., was where I think the regulators were holding back to allow people to use blockchain to deliver these services. So it's less a case of not allowing such activities to take place, and more a case of ensuring that there's a stability in that technology. As Sudhin was adhering to, right? Why are these financial institutions keen on ensuring there's fast failure and then you move on to the next use case? Is because they want to bring in use cases that are working to the regulators to showcase that this can be done without too much of a difficulty, right? Now, what I am seeing here in this part of the world, in Hong Kong and Singapore, as well as what's happening in India slowly, is regulators have been looking at blockchain as for various applications for the last 3 to 4 years. In particular, trade finance, you've already seen large-scale POCs done where major banks and the regulators, say HKMA and MES, have done a variety of use cases for trade finance using the blockchain for payments, etc. Right. So one, it is just a matter of regulators now being comfortable with the technology. So there is an element of education. I feel as Sudhir is doing with BankChain, a lot of the others are doing in their personal capacities, there is this very big need for us to be able to convey to our regulators that this is no longer a case of two kids in a garage somewhere in Eastern Europe or building this out, and that worry about ICOs or cryptos. You have to differentiate to the regulators that cryptocurrency is just one application. You may go wherever you want to go with that, while blockchain is the technology. And as Prasanna was mentioning, that's what it will be, the internet. It's underlying technology for internet, and nobody should really be too concerned about the use cases, right? I mean, just a side note is, you have pornography on the internet, you have illegal transactions on the internet, right? Doesn't mean that you ban internet completely. It's a similar story with blockchain, and we need to make sure that the regulators understand that, yes, there may be use cases of cryptocurrencies being used for money laundering or for criminal activities, but that's just one use case. You have to apply the same rules you apply in the modern day world, and try to find ways to restrict it, which FATF are trying to do with the WASP and the new carry rules, right? So one element is this. I think education is very important. Secondly, with now a lot of the major technology players ranging from the American giants, IBM has been very actively involved, Microsoft, etc., very actively involved in blockchain itself and use cases. On the other side, inherently in China, you've had the big tech giants using blockchain, not just from a use case perspective, but on multiple real production systems, right? AntChain is an example. Fisco, which has been around for 4 years, is a consortium of banks and financial institutions in China using a standardized blockchain. So you've had that in place, and it's been, in a sense, a module that can be replicated elsewhere. So regulators need to now be comfortable with the use of technology for all of these services. What they should just be able to bring in place, I think, is accelerate sandboxes, specifically around blockchain use cases, so that they can have a look at it. They can ensure that there's no unintended consequences because of the technology. Like the example of cloud that Sudhir was giving, I don't think regulators anywhere have actually have counted in failure and the risk that comes with cloud when it comes to multiple parties being hosted on the same infrastructure. If an AWS goes down globally because of some issue, that's going to impact the whole global banking network, simply because a lot of banks are on that, right? So in a similar way, I think regulators need to, at least when coming to blockchain, need to ensure that there's no systematic risk that is coming in by the use of blockchain. And whenever you talk about attacks on the blockchain ecosystem, usually it's down to not strong protocols and less risk controls that the companies building these blockchains have provided. It's less an attack on the chain itself. Yes, you do have some cases where somebody's trying to take over a blockchain protocol, but when you talk about private chains and DLTs, you don't really need to worry so much about it. But it's down to how strong these systems are. So cybersecurity rules and ensuring and making sure these financial institutions in particular around payments, etc., have built their cybersecurity defenses well while using blockchain and don't provide access to attackers is going to be critical, right? Lastly, I would say is the cross-border nature of what can be achieved is important for financial inclusion. It's also important for reducing costs. Right? It saves time, it saves processes and operations, and the regulators have to keep this in mind for the greater good. Right? So initiatives just like we have, which the FC has initiated, where the global fintech node, GFIN innovation node, where regulators are working together on multiple use cases. They started off with RegTech use cases and what is a global sandbox, I think needs to be accelerated when it comes to things such as blockchain's use, especially for remittances, especially for cross-border payments, and not to have that hurdle because they feel they can be a loss. Final touching point is we are seeing a lot of, we usually spoke about the Bahamas, and you spoke about how you have the central bank digital currencies in terms of SANCs, and China has come out with a very active working protocol of the e-renminbi, right? Now, as we, in the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see a lot of central banks do the same. about 90 to 95% of all central banks are researching central bank digital currencies in some state or form or whatever stage they are in. Once that comes through, interoperability is going to be very important, and building standards and interoperable systems to connect these different central bank digital currencies will become important from a trade perspective and payments perspective.
Thank you. Thanks a lot on this, Sayed. I think we have all done with the time, but it was a very fascinating and interesting piece of discussion. And there have been some of the questions. We received some questions around telecom use cases, but I think this is specifically focused on banking and finance. So I don't think we'll have neither time or the expertise to talk on telecom use cases. As far as solutions and challenges are concerned, there's a question which came out from the audience, and I think we have covered it extremely well. And not only challenges, we in fact went to the possible solutions on handling that. So thanks for all this entire enlightening discussion, and over to you, MC, to take it forward.
Thank you so much, sir. A big thank you to all the panel members for the fruitful discussion that we just had. That said, once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a look at the solutions that are there with us, that are acting as a driving force behind making payments a success in today's challenging time. Do visit the exhibit partners by clicking on the exhibit arena icon in the lobby area. Do not forget to visit Group IB and Winca Cyber booth to know more about fraud hunting platform and threat hunting framework. With that said, please note we also have some Amazon vouchers to be given away. And all you have to do is continue to smile, keep smiling. Go ahead to the virtual booth, strike a pose and upload it on your social media platforms. Please do not forget to follow us, like us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Our handles for Twitter is @ConnectSapphire. Our Facebook handle is @Sapphire Connect, and on LinkedIn you can find us at Sapphire Connect. That's what that's what the information on the handles. And coming to the hashtag, it's the hashtag SCPayground. Do not forget to add that hashtag. And towards the end, or maybe we will announce the winners online. So request you all to please stay glued to our social media channels. That said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to the next segment, which is the next panel discussion. But right before that, to all the gentlemen here, a big hand to you all. I think, you know what, more than anything, you all should be just raising your right hand on top. Can I just see the right hand on top? Everyone. Awesome. Can I just see you all placing it on your back? Pat and say, good job. You guys have done an amazing job. And well, I can say, I mean, when they say that India is growing, I think the driving force is you, and we're going to be following you. That's the best way to say it. Am I right? Amazing. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, again, in next 2 minutes, we will see you on the next panel discussion. Thank you.